My name is Matthew Taylor. I work at University of Southampton and I'm currently working on EdShare and also the LifeGuide project. This is a personal repository. We call it either, Redfeather we call either a micro repository or a personal repository. It's generally intended for a single user. Redfeather is a kind of direct response to the difficulties I experienced kind of developing on the EdShare platform using ePrints. And it's an out-of-the-box OER kind of solution as opposed to one which is intended for huge amounts of people, like an institutional level repository. So in every way that something like ePrints is complex and does a lot of stuff for you, Redfeather tries to be simple. Redfeather tries to take the easiest possible approach in any situation. So say if you're an academic and you want to put some of your teaching materials online, but you don't have like an EdShare or an ePrints or whatever, and you don't have any way of putting it up there in a useful way. Sure, you could just take the files and just copy them into that directory, but that's really not that useful. Files available to download, but you're missing out on a lot of the added value that you would get with a repository. For example, attribution, like a nice kind of resource page, somewhere for people to leave comments, somewhere that people can actually go and see the files in a consistent location. So the idea is, instead of just putting your files randomly, you then just put them in Redfeather instead. It's pretty much the same. You're still just putting them on the web server, but Redfeather kind of wraps them up in a very nice kind of package that allows you to do all the things that you want to be able to do if you had a repository, but you don't have the resources. Something like ePrints has a lot of infrastructure built into it that allows you to have very complex workflows, allows you to have very complex metadata schemas, very complex views, import, export plugins, all this kind of thing, none of which are really any use to the people that we develop for. So Redfeather is targeted at a slightly different community than ePrints. Redfeather is a single PHP file. You put it onto a web server, you then use it. It's as simple as that. Redfeather is essentially an exercise in how simple you can get infrastructure before you start running into problems. The original intention was to try and make something which had literally zero dependencies. And the current version of Redfeather requires PHP version 4 or above, and nothing else. You don't need any database. All the files and metadata are stored in the file system itself. All you need to be able to do is upload to a PHP-enabled directory. Then you need to be able to have write permissions on that directory, so you can then upload files and copy things into there. Everything else is completely unnecessary. You don't need to have a special web server, you don't need to have a database, none of that stuff. I'm not aware of any deployments of Redfeather outside of Southampton at the moment. And the problem we have is that most of the people that we deal with at conferences, deal with in the community, are institutional repository users. These are people who already have ePrints. It's like going to the North Pole and trying to sell an Eskimo a freezer. This is something that has use to some people, but the people that we're in contact with, the people who we interact with, are not those people. We're looking for what we like to call the long tail of depositors. The people who are just completely isolated, the people who don't have access to these things. And finding them is difficult, because by their definition, they're difficult to find.